December 13th, 1949. In a small office in Tel Aviv, a few dozen men and women gather around a single wooden table. The country outside is barely a year old, fragile, exhausted, and surrounded by enemies. Inside that room, something new is being born. It has no flag, no uniform, no anthem, just a name: the Central Institute for Coordination. No one in that moment could imagine that this tiny, improvised bureau, staffed by just 80 people, would one day become one of the most powerful and secretive intelligence agencies on Earth. To understand why Mossad had to exist, we need to rewind to the chaos of 1948. The State of Israel had just declared independence, and within hours, 5 Arab armies had invaded. Egypt, Syria, Jordan, Iraq, and Lebanon surrounded the infant nation on every front. Israel's army, the IDF, was barely formed. Its air force flew second-hand planes. Its soldiers carried mismatched rifles. But even as it fought to survive on the battlefield, Israel faced another threat: the war of information. Its leaders realized something simple and terrifying. In the Middle East, what you don't know can kill you faster than what you do. For centuries, Jews in exile had relied on rumor, intuition, and coded letters to survive hostile powers. Now, as a new nation, Israel needed something different: a modern intelligence system that could see beyond its borders, read the intentions of its enemies, and strike before being struck. The vision was not just to collect secrets, but to coordinate them between the army, foreign ministry, and domestic security. That's why the agency's first name sounded so bureaucratic: Ha-Mossad Leteom, the Institute for Coordination. That phrase, Mossad, would soon mean much more. When Mossad was born, it wasn't the fearsome organization of myth. It was 80 people, clerks, translators, and a handful of former resistance fighters from Europe. They worked in rented apartments, using typewriters that jammed, filing cabinets that didn't lock, and telephones tapped by half of Tel Aviv. Their mission was both vast and vague: coordinate intelligence, run foreign contacts, and make sure that no threat went unnoticed. But they had no blueprint. Israel had no CIA, no MI6, no precedent for what a Jewish intelligence service should look like. So they borrowed ideas from everywhere: the British for organization, the Soviets for fieldcraft, and the underground Jewish networks that had smuggled refugees during the Holocaust for improvisation. In these first years, Mossad's job was survival through information. Every rumor about troop movements in Cairo, every intercepted telegram from Damascus, every whisper from an Arab capital, all of it mattered. Behind each piece of paper was a life, and behind every life, a potential catastrophe or salvation. Then came a man who would turn a small office into an institution. His name was Isser Harel. Born in Russia, raised in Latvia, and hardened by exile, Harel joined the pre-state intelligence service known as the Shin Bet and quickly rose through its ranks. He believed in discipline, secrecy, and purpose. To him, intelligence work was not about glamour or adventure. It was about precision and paranoia in equal measure. When he took command of Mossad in 1952, the agency still looked like a startup without funding. Harel turned it into a machine. He standardized training, created formal divisions for political intelligence, counter-espionage, and foreign operations. He insisted on written reports, strict compartmentalization, and above all, silence. Under Harel, Mossad agents stopped being amateurs with guns and became professionals with legends. They learned how to disappear behind false names, fake jobs, and flawless accents. They studied languages, local customs, and how to blend in not as tourists, but as ghosts. To be a Mossad officer under Harel was to live 2 lives, and sometimes to lose both. The early 1950 seconds were years of danger, but also of opportunity. The new state needed eyes everywhere: in Egypt, Jordan, Iraq, Iran, and Europe. One of Mossad's first tasks was to track Jewish refugees trapped in Arab lands and help them escape to Israel. Operations codenamed Magic Carpet and Ali Baba airlifted tens of thousands of Jews from Yemen, Iraq, and Morocco using smugglers, bribed officials, and secret airstrips. For these people, Mossad wasn't just an intelligence service. It was a lifeline. But Mossad's shadow work soon extended beyond rescue missions. Its agents monitored Arab military plans, followed arms deals, and tracked Nazi fugitives who had found sanctuary in South America and the Middle East. In 1956, during the Suez Crisis, Mossad's intelligence on Egyptian deployments helped Israel plan one of its first coordinated military operations with Britain and France. It was a turning point, the moment when information turned into power. Under Harel, Mossad's motto could have been, "Victory begins before the war starts." Inside Mossad's growing headquarters in Tel Aviv, the atmosphere was a mix of devotion and dread. Agents were told to trust no one outside the agency sometimes, not even their own families. Many worked under cover names, so secret that even internal mail used code numbers instead of surnames. The walls were bare, the windows shuttered, coffee was served strong, and silence stronger. Every story shared inside those rooms came with an unspoken rule: what's said here dies here. Harel personally interviewed every new recruit. He looked not for charm or intelligence, but for endurance. He asked questions like, could you lie to someone who loves you? Could you disappear for years and return as if nothing happened? He believed espionage wasn't about intellect, it was about character. And under his leadership, Mossad developed a culture that still defines it: quiet obsession, moral ambiguity, and relentless commitment to the state. By the late 1952, Mossad was no longer a small coordination office. It had networks across Europe, informants inside Arab governments, and deep connections with Western intelligence agencies. One operation changed everything. In 1960, agents under Harel's direction tracked down Adolf Eichmann, one of the chief architects of the Holocaust, hiding in Argentina under a false identity. The mission, codenamed Operation Finale, would become a textbook case of patience and precision. Mossad agents staked out his house for weeks. They timed his bus route, and one May evening, they seized him on a quiet street, sedated him, and smuggled him to Israel aboard an El Al plane disguised as an airline mechanic. For the first time, the hidden hand of Mossad became visible to the world. Eichmann's capture was not just revenge, it was vindication. Proof that a people once powerless could now reach across continents to bring justice home. The story electrified Israel and terrified its enemies. From that moment, the word Mossad stopped meaning coordination. It meant retribution. But inside the agency, success came with consequences. The spotlight made Harel uneasy. He preferred the shadows where anonymity was armor. And soon, his perfectionism and suspicion would clash with political leaders who wanted a more aggressive, visible Mossad. By 1963, Israel was changing, more confident, more outward-looking, and more ambitious. Prime Minister David Ben-Gurion, the father of the nation, was preparing to step down. A new generation wanted Mossad to take bigger risks, run larger operations, and play the global game. Harel resisted. He feared that publicity and politics would corrupt the purity of intelligence. He warned against overreach, against using Mossad not as a shield, but as a sword. When his advice was ignored, he resigned. He left behind an organization of hundreds, no longer 80, with budgets, training centers, and global reach. But he also left behind something intangible, a code of conduct written not on paper, but in mindset. Never assume safety. Never trust appearances. Never forget why you exist. Harel's departure marked the end of Mossad's childhood and the beginning of its adolescence. In the decades that followed, Mossad's reach expanded across continents. It spied on enemy scientists developing weapons, built relationships with African and Asian governments, and infiltrated terrorist groups before terrorism even had a name. But every empire of intelligence traces its DNA back to those early years. The 80 people, the rented office, and Isser Harel's relentless discipline. In many ways, the agency's growth mirrored Israel's own evolution, from fragile survivor to regional power. Both learned the same lesson. To stay alive, you must see what others can't. For the Mossad, that meant mastering the art of invisibility, not just hiding agents, but hiding intentions. Its operatives learned to speak the language of their enemies, to read rooms like maps, and to vanish without leaving a trace. From Paris to Tehran, from Buenos Aires to Baghdad, the world became both battlefield and classroom. Every mission refined the craft, every failure rewrote the manual. And though names and faces changed, the essence remained. Information is survival. Survival is victory. Yet intelligence has a cost. The more powerful Mossad became, the more questions arose. Who watches the watchers? How far can a democracy go to defend itself before it becomes what it fears? Mossad's defenders argue that its methods, however ruthless, have saved countless lives. Its critics say that secrecy breeds arrogance, that operating without oversight invites moral decay. Both are right. Because the story of Mossad is not just about spies and missions. It's about the psychology of a nation born in trauma, a nation that swore never again to be blind, never again to be helpless. For Israelis, Mossad is not merely an intelligence agency. It is a promise that no threat will go unseen, no crime unpunished, and no Jew abandoned. But it's also a warning that in the pursuit of absolute security, even the protectors can lose sight of what they're protecting. It began with 80 people and one simple goal: coordination. Today, Mossad operates across the globe, its actions rarely acknowledged, its successes often invisible. Its motto reads, "Where there is no guidance, a nation falls, but in abundance of counselors, there is victory." A verse from the book of Proverbs, a reminder that wisdom, not power, is what keeps a nation alive. But wisdom in the shadows is never pure. Every decision, every operation, carries the weight of moral ambiguity. In 1949, Mossad's founders couldn't have known what their creation would become. They only knew that in a hostile world, knowledge was the most dangerous weapon and the only one they could afford. The birth of Mossad is not just the story of an intelligence agency. It is the story of a people who learned that survival depends not on size or strength or borders, but on the ability to see first.